Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Point 99 podcast, a running podcast for runners by runners. If you're new to running, we hope to have topics and discussions that will help you along whatever path your journey is taking. Or for any seasoned runners, maybe some stories that will have you empathizing with our experiences. Whether it's lessons we've learned during our own journeys, embarrassing stories, or heartstring pulling moments, we hope you'll stick with us while we try to share some good vibes, motivation and positivity. And hopefully we can have a laugh along the way. Episode 8. Where has the time gone? Before we fire into the chat about London with the bearded banter master himself, Runnerman Steve, I'll let you know what to expect from the 8th episode. Much of the same and a little bit extra to boot. For anyone who doesn't follow any of our social channels, the podcast's Instagram, or even myself or Steve, then you may have missed that we once again welcome in a guest to the show. Or should I say, guests? It's a triangle of association for myself and both guests, with my personal connection with one of these lovely ladies going as far back as 19 years, just with a little lost time along the way. But by mutuality, we are now friends of old and friends of new. Social media, especially Instagram, doing what it does best and bringing people together. So we're lucky enough to be blessed with the cold water goddesses Emily and Hannah, otherwise known as Emily in the Outdoors and Han Van Ventures. Unfortunately, I'll be flying solo for both interview and wrap up for the episode this time around, as the bearded running man is going on his holidays, but not before we address the major elephant in the room. He's certainly one extremely happy chappie who's still very much flying high after a phenomenal personal best at the London Marathon. It is, of course, Mo Farrugia himself, Runnerman Steve.
That took some getting through.
That did take some getting through.
Oh, the outtakes to be brilliant.
Oh, man. That's the first time that's taken more than 2 attempts.
2 attempts and a lot of profanity.
Yes. And now you can see why I wanted to know how to pronounce your surname.
Yeah, why I sent it over to you like you'd seen a dinosaur book. I had to break it down in syllables. What it
that made it
like.
More confusing. That honestly made it more confusing.
We got it right, so it helped.
Oh, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, to be fair. I'm the legs feel normal again. The left knee area is a little bit. There's a little bit left on there, but as I've mentioned before, there's always issues on the left side because the glute on the left's a bit weak, so it takes more of the work. However, when I had a sports massage yesterday, weirdly enough, it seemed like my right leg had taken more punishment than the left. Maybe it was doing more work because obviously it's the dominant foot. So
yeah, maybe overcompensating and putting more pressure on the right and letting the left have a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, maybe. I think the right is where I generate the power off, to be fair, because it's like I said, it's the dominant foot, it's the dominant side, so it push out more power. So maybe. But yeah, otherwise I'm all good, mate. I'm all good.
Oh, good. Well, as I mentioned, you had a phenomenal London Marathon. And before the episode kicked off, myself and Steve, as always, kind of had a wee chat. And then a number of people that messaged me. So I can imagine the number of people that were messaging Steve just absolutely praising his consistency and his splits throughout the whole of the marathon while tracking on the app. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, so I was going to go out with the paces, and then so Steve runs London. Funny enough, bumped into him at the DLR station just like last year. It was I don't know how it happened. We seemed to get bumping into each other, and he was like, this queue's massive for the toilet. Let's get into the queue for the toilet. And I thought, yeah, crack on, no worries. Half an hour later, which felt like 4 years. And then by the time I actually got to the Portaloo, I had about 4 minutes before my pen opened. So by which point the 3:30 placers were at the very front. Right, say hello. Take your dummy out and say hello.
Hello. What's his name?
Steve. Yes. What's my name?
Daddy.
Thank you.
Oh.
There we go. And there we have. The show is over, ladies and gentlemen. I got a few messages before from saying, "Oh, your daughter made the episode." So I was like, "Oh, shit." Nothing else about the running, just a little child saying hello, point 99.
That's our mascot. That's our new mascot.
So at about 4 minutes before the pen was due to open, the 3:30 pacers were at the front. And I mean, I was so far back in my starting pen now, I was stuck behind the 3:45 pacers, and I thought, I'm not going to weave in and out and try and chase down the 3:30s. I'm just going to deal with it as it is. And I was more pacing it through heart rate more than anything.
Yeah.
Because over the training, I've learned to go by feel in that sense. But yeah, I knew I was in and around the same time through what I was running. It was going really well until mile 20 and a half, just before 21, and then the cramp just popped by to say, going smooth, are you? Have some of that. And I tried to run it off. I genuinely tried to run it off, but it just weren't shifting. And sort of the intensity got worse and worse. And as I realised that, 3:30 was gone, I looked at it, I was like, it's gone. I'm not going to try and push myself through a ridiculous pain barrier here. I'll just walk some of it. Because what am I going to gain otherwise? Nothing. And I knew I was comfortably getting a massive PB out of it. So yeah, I just rolled with it.
Do you think that maybe, because you were saying just before we started recording, that it was raining for quite a lot of the marathon. Do you think maybe the rain and your body cooling down in a way that you're not normally used to through your training might have been a kind of cause of some of the cramp?
I don't think it was, to be fair, because my feet weren't hurting.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't say, the socks got wet and then the feet started and it brought the cramps into the foot, into the calves. I felt fine. The rain weren't as bad as some people are making out. It was raining. There were puddles, and by the way, people were changing the route of their travel of direction, the direction of travel. Sorry, because of puddles. They didn't want to run through a puddle. I was like, get over yourself. We're all wet anyway. What's the point?
Yeah, there's sometimes a lot of fear though that by getting wet feet you're gonna get blisters. But if you've got wet feet, you've got wet feet. A puddle's not gonna
most
get any worse.
Most of the people running that in my time category were wearing some form of, let's call it, super shoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are amazing for what they do, but the upper isn't, really built for
splash
rain.
Protection. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. So your feet are going to get wet anyway. Just get on with it. So just get on. We're going to get wet feet. You're going to get through it. But yeah, it's when I finished the race and looked. All right, I'll stop moving around. I'll sit down. It's when I stopped the run, finished, and then looked at the splits, because people were messaging me like, just basically saying your pacing is ridiculously on point. I mean, Giz on the run said she thought she was starting to wonder if I'd happen to stumble across some sort of cruise control for runners.
Yeah, it definitely looked like that, because it was 8:10, 8:10, 8:10. Like, what?
Yeah, I think it was like 8:10, 8:09, 8:10, 8:10, 8:10. Even at 8:14 was still within the range.
Yeah.
And then you can tell at what point the cramp started having the effect.
Yeah, I think it started to like an 8:24 or something.
Yeah, but even then, you look at it, even with cramp, the average still only went as high as 8:44.
Yeah.
So it gives me great confidence. I've learned bits and pieces already from that marathon itself, in terms of how to get more electrolytes in. I didn't realise that Science and Sport done a gel that's basically got electrolytes specifically in it as well.
Yeah, they do. Yes.
So I didn't know that, because you can't get those in Holland and Barrett. They just do the bog standard gels.
Yeah.
They don't do the gel and electrolyte in there. So maybe next time I can work out, okay, I'm going to take normal gel at 4, electrolyte at 8, normal 12, and to alternate them around to get enough electrolytes in the system. That might stop the cramp, or it might delay it till, say, 22, 23, and then you're in a position to go, I'm just going to give it a 5K full send and see what happens.
Yeah, you would hope by that point it wouldn't necessarily delay it. It would just put it off until the end of the run was over. But yeah, the science and sport stuff is the same with like High Five and any of the other major competitors. They do a lot of range online, but when you go to a standard high street retailer, you find it hard to get some of their specialist stuff.
Yeah, I think the only specialist one I had before from Science Sport, I bought it by mistake in Tesco. It was the gel but caffeinated one.
Oh, yeah.
And it just felt like someone crushed up a coffee bean and stuck it on your tongue. It was vile.
I've had experience of that with the High Five, and I've heard other people talk about the heavily caffeinated gels. It's just like having a coffee half an hour before you go out for a run to help increase your bowel movement. I've heard that people have had, now it might not be the cause, it may just be a happy coincidence, but the unfortunateness of having to stop at the Portaloo more at times than they would like because I have heavily caffeinated gels. Now, as I say, it might just be totally coincidental, but I personally wouldn't go for the caffeinated gels.
Their mistake is they didn't take Imodium.
Yes, that too. Some people don't take it though. Yeah, I do always. Too. Yeah, but a lot of people don't trust it. They either don't trust it or they're told not to take it because it's bad for you. It's not bad for you. It just helps you stop you having a little bit of an accident on course.
Yeah, well,
having Paul at Radcliffe.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, if it's good enough for her, it's good enough for anyone. But I'm not doing that. But I sort of made a weekend of it, the marathon.
Yeah.
I've done a shakeout run on Saturday. That was the first time I've ever done a shakeout before a race. Normally I go, no, I'm not doing nothing. But I actually think that helped my performance because, I'd put something through the legs the day before. Nothing too strenuous, nice and easy. There was chatty miles, like 3 miles. A bit of a stretch,
yeah. So more naturally, because you're running while you're talking,
The next day I was ready for it. I went to Tracksmith in London. Super great, super good vibes. I mean, there's about 400 people there doing it, running the streets.
The photos looked mental.
Yeah, and it was a bit difficult for the pacers there, for Steve and the pacers, because a lot were, people from international, so like America and whatnot, and they just weren't stopping for cars, and they're shouting saying, stop, the cars will run you over. And they was risking it. I was like, it's not worth risking it for what are you getting out of it?
Yeah.
So it was really good, and you got to go into Tracksmith and all that sort. So that was really good. And then the next day was great, and the run was really good. I enjoyed it all, even when I had the cramp. I was enjoying it because I knew the PB was absolutely gargantuan. It was like a 34-minute 58 PB.
Yeah, and the most important thing is the photos that I've seen. You looked happy. You didn't have. It didn't look at any point that you had the moment of the realness setting in of this is a monster task. You actually looked happy at all the photos I've seen so far.
Yeah, and this run was made up of certain milestones, key points for me. The first one was mile 17.
Yeah,
overcoming that one. Yeah, that's where it unravelled last time. And when I got to 17, this time I saw my aunt, and I shouted out to her.
Was she on the correct side of the road?
Yep, the only side of the road. She was on the correct side of the road. And I thought I'd passed her too quick, but she managed to get that shot of me running, putting my arm out, smiling.
It's spot on. It's a cracking photo.
Right. So she got that, and I thought, this is great. I got through to like 19, 20. I thought, I've got 10K to go. This is great. And then it sort of like dipped a little bit there, and I thought, no, I'm just gonna run, walk it. And
I think that's when I saw when I checked. I'd headed out for a run and I checked to see how you were getting on at that point, and I think you'd just come across Tower Bridge and you were just coming round the corner of the tower itself, and you were looking strong by that point. So I never really paid too much attention once I was out to actually what happened to your pace, but it was still you were still on phenomenal form.
Yeah, and you know what's pretty funny actually. So, what was it? I think it was yesterday on Twitter. Irish McColgan put up a post saying, "I share your day or below this thread and whatever." So I put a picture and said, "Oh, about the PB being 34:58," and she's like, "Oh, now you're just showing off." I was like, "That's Irish McColgan giving me like ridiculously good credit here. That's insane to me." I mean, I know it's sometimes I think, oh, it's a good. Some of them do it for good for PR pieces, but it's like it felt genuine. So it's like, oh, I've got an elite actually thinking you've done a really good job here, and the support was ridiculous afterwards. I know it's marathon weekend and you're going to get more likes on social media because it is marathon weekend. It's expected, but I didn't expect it to go over 700 likes. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I will say it's a Scottish thing. The Scottish people show the best support. If the crowd that I was watching the messages from, all Scottish people, half of them haven't followed you until fairly recently, and they were singing your praises quite.
And you know what? Actually, it's funny because at mile 9, so I'm running, and I hear someone shout, "Go on, Steve!" And some other bloke went, "Oh, thanks," and then she went, "No, runner man, Steve." right. And I was thinking, and I looked, I just thumbs up to her. I'm thinking, who is that? Why do I recognise that person? And I carried on. So in my post, I put down, thanks to Ian Runs Marathons, because he shouted at me from Canary Wharf, and Lucy, she was about there as well, and so on and so forth. And then I said, oh, and the person that shouted out my Insta name at mile 9, whoever you are. And I later found out it was Emily in the Outdoors.
Oh, yes, because now Emily is, as we mentioned in the introduction, she's going to be one of our guests in the future. On this episode. We haven't recorded it yet because we're ahead of time this week. But she had run the virtual London Marathon in reverse the night before.
Yeah. And I was thinking, who was that? I had a couple of people that done it on the course. And I was like, it just felt, there's only been 7 months between October's marathon and this one, but it just felt like the support from the social side of it, and even on the course for me, was much bigger than what it was in October. And it was ridiculous. It was great. The support was fantastic.
No, because I can't remember. I remember your last Instagram milestone quite vividly. But you've just hit another milestone with a number of followers. I think just before your last London Marathon, just 6 months ago, you'd hit. Am I right in thinking probably about 2,000 followers, and just within the space of that 6 months, you're up at 3,000 now.
I think it would have been around the 2.4 to 2.5 roughly.
Yeah.
It was in October. Yeah, it's just, and partly is obviously, I've unlocked Scotland. Yeah. Through his podcast, I've got Scotland on my back now, which is great.
But your content's also genuine. You're not hiding anything, and that talks to a lot of people.
No, it is what it is. It might be the same style selfie, just different context body sometimes, and sometimes it's great. And actually, it's really funny though, because I posted that I've just gone past 3,000 followers. I went, it's absolutely ridiculous, because me, it blows my mind that people, like 3 people's interest, let alone 3,000. Now I know there'll be people in that number that maybe don't use it no more. They've just never deactivated their account, and so on and so forth. But Craig the runner, he DM'd me and he said, "Make it 2,999. I'm about to unfollow you, pal." Right? And so I text him back saying, Craig the unfollower. But it's just that little, we've got this community that you're building up, and that's what we're trying to pay it back. There were, I'm not going to call out certain people, but there were some people on that marathon course that wasn't what they are online. I'm not going to mention any names because I can't be bothered with the heat. But there were people that were being, okay, you play your game. There were people that were shouting at them by Instagram names, and they had no headphones on, and they was ignoring them as if they weren't there, which I thought was a bit rubbish.
Very rude. Yeah, that's not good.
I mean, if they shout you by your name, I mean, there are about, of the 48,000 that were at the marathon, I think 46,000 were called Steve.
Yeah, that's exactly. My wife says that anytime a TV producer or film or anyone doesn't know what to call something, they call it Steve, and it's such a common name. We're so common, aren't we, Steve? But it's right. It's so often you'll hear someone shout Steve in the street. You'll turn around, you're like, it's not for me. It's not for me.
And it's anyone that shouted Steve. Even if it wasn't for me, I said thanks. Yeah. Like I lost count every time I said thanks. I mean, I went through the water station. I said thanks. Not only said thanks for water, I said thanks for volunteering. Carried on running.
Yeah, it's courtesy. It's courtesy for the volunteers.
And I mean, even when you got my medal when I recalled, I done that little thing where you record yourself getting your medal, and I was like, oh, thanks for volunteering. She went, oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. I was like, if they're not there, Steve, then the races don't happen, because these companies are not going to pay the amount of money that is required to actually pay people to do it. It's not going to happen. And if there's no volunteers, that doesn't happen. Park runs don't happen. None of it happens.
I'll put it in context. So for the local half marathon, 10K marathon, the people that run it, now, my brother's a race coordinator for the 10K, and he worked at the same day as London Marathon. There was an event called the Loch Ness Tap, which is a serious cycling event. He cycled around the loch. But it's the same people that organise it. They do it for no money, but they occasionally get rewarded in kind, in a way. They get branded jackets, or they've had Hoka shoes in the past. It's small gestures from the sponsors to say thanks for doing what you're doing. And even I've seen the effort they go to try and get people. I've done volunteer work at these before, and they'll donate X amount of money under your name to a charity of your choice. They give you maybe a bobble hat and a bag of goodies. And you're not doing it because you're getting paid. You're doing it because you want to help other people, or you've maybe run so many marathons, or you've run X amount of these events yourself, and it's just giving back. But it's also nice to be nice to these people, because they're giving their time to make that event you're taking part in happen.
No, that is exactly what it is. And if I don't get a London ballot place, I'm not going to run London. And if I can make it work, I'll go and volunteer myself, because I've had it for the last 2 years, and I'll be there on the sign. Like, even if I'm just going there, take a bottle of water. It's still a bloody important part of what the marathon is, to give them, just handing water bottles out to people all day until the last person passes you.
If some of the people that have run it 8-9 times could stop signing up for the ballot and actually go volunteer and let us have a go, that would be great. That would also be very good.
I mean, I'm not going to endorse that, people, because I've run it 2 years in a row, and I want to run it for the third.
Well, the difference between 3 and 8, though, Steve, that's a big difference.
No, you know what? I think a lot of the people that are doing it 8 times, they're mainly good for age, aren't they?
They usually are. They're monsters.
Good for age, or charity places.
Yeah, usually. But so can you tell us again what your actual time was and what your PB amount was?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the official time that was sent. Now, if I was to go with the Garmin time, I think it's like 3:46. But on the London Marathon, or any marathon, especially London, though, you'll find that you've done a little bit extra. So I think I've done usually 0.3 extra, because you might have to weave out the way of someone or whatever. So I always go with the official time, because that's what happens when you cross the line at the start and cross the line at the end, and everything in between. So 3:49.06 was my time. Last year it was 4:23
Yes, massive. That's a mammoth.
Or 4:23:04 last year. So that's I worked out with my quick maths. It was like 34 minutes and 58 seconds PB. So 2 seconds shy of 35 minutes.
That's immense. That is absolutely immense. But you are correct. It's one of those odd ones where Edinburgh was, I think it was measured slightly long. So my first marathon time was on the unfortunate side of 4:30, whereas my Garmin time, my Strava time was on the good side of 4:30. So I went with my Strava time. But the time for the Loch Ness Marathon, the Strava was slightly longer than the event time, so I went with the event time. So hopefully, being that my event time previously was 4:24, so very similar to yours. Maybe not this marathon, because unfortunately I picked up a slight niggle at the weekend. Hopefully, going into Amsterdam later in the year, I can replicate some of your success.
Why not? I tried to stick to the blue line as much as possible, because that is the most accurate in terms of distance. If you then go outside that blue line, you're going to add a little bit extra here and there. So I tried to stick to the racing line, and that seemed to work, because I didn't find myself having to move either side of people too much. People knew that the blue line was, people were going to go along that to be a bit quicker. But yeah, everyone seemed to be a bit quicker because I was in that group.
Yeah, you're in with not the elites, but the serious guys who know that if they're having trouble, you move to the left or you move to the right, you move to the left and you overtake on the right. You don't just stop in the middle of the racing line and potentially have someone collide with you because you've just stopped in the middle of the racing line.
Yeah, it was very much that. I know if you go this, and I was talking to work about it. I said there's nothing wrong with anyone doing what they're doing. People at the back are working harder than us at the front.
Yeah.
Because they're at it for a lot longer. But it just felt like everyone around me sort of knew the etiquettes more than what I'd experienced last year. And obviously last year I fell back in the pack purely based on the fact that the hit point at 17 as a result of the training not being as good as it was this time around.
Your training this time around was absolutely spectacular, though. You put in a superb effort with the runner coach app as well, and really gave it a good old go. So no, it's all paid off.
I think the only couple of things that I've learned that I could do better is, like I said, one, don't get my hand caught in the machine that stops you from going to the gym for the last 3.5 weeks of training. So I shan't do that, because that might have had a little bit of effect, but not too much of an effect, but little wins here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think next time when it says run at a comfortable pace, I wanted to be comfortable in the goal pace, but maybe I didn't do enough as time on feet. I didn't really go over 3 hours at all on the training run. So I think the next time round, I might specifically make sure that I'm out for around about the 3:15, 3:20 mark, and then the body will be used to it. So maybe that way the cramp, if anything, would onset later because it's used to being out for that amount of time. It's almost like tricking the body.
Or and it was just because I was watching a reel just before we started. Maybe tune the pace down just a little bit so it's even more comfortable, still productive, still hitting those targets, but you're in a negative split where start off super comfortable and then hopefully all the cramp and any of the nasty stay away, and by the time you get to the second half of the marathon you're full of energy, you're cramp free, and you can just glide to an even bigger and more phenomenal PB.
It's true. It's all, obviously when you start looking at the sub 3:30s and then getting down to the 3:20s and whatnot, you're going to have to run a lot more miles in and around sort of the 7:50 to 8 minute paces. So it's one to work out, one to think of. I've had someone in my DMs like, you do realise, you could give it a couple of years and you could be closer to the 3 hour mark. I went, slowly catch your monkey.
That's it. We're not getting any younger, so training just gets harder, but it's still easily achievable. You're not an old decrepit man yet.
No. It's but the way the good for ages go, if I don't start cracking the sub 3 areas, I'll have to wait till I'm about 85 years old when it's like 3 hours and 5 minutes.
No,
dude, honestly, it's absolute. Some of them are absolute machines. They are absolute machines.
Well, we just shout out that the winning time in the men's category was the second fastest marathon ever, and he just looked like he'd just gone for a stroll in the park.
Yeah, that was his second marathon.
It's insane. And the female winner, it was her first marathon, wasn't it? Her first full marathon. That's crazy.
She stopped, stretched the legs because she had cramps, and then took the win again. I was like, that's ridiculous.
It is insane that the caliber of athletes that the African nations produce is so good, and it's nice to see them getting the praise. It's always been the case, though. I grew up, and you grew up with Haile Gebrselassie as like he was the GOAT of the time, and it put a lot of spotlight on the African nations. But nowadays, with there being more interest in running, there's even more spotlight on just how incredibly good athletes from the African continent are, and hopefully we might see in the future a major coming up in their sort of territory, because they are the GOATs. They are the guys that are absolutely showing everyone how to do it.
They are. They train at such altitude that they come down onto a flat. They come down to a flat course and absolutely obliterate, because it's nothing. It's child's play.
Yeah, they're all lungs by that point.
I think the winner of the men's ran the second half in 59 minutes and something.
Crazy. That's crazy.
That's like, I said, you have the laugh. 59 minutes for a second half of a marathon. And I think he was wearing like Vaporfly or something like that as well.
Yeah, I think so. But
no, it's good. It was good fun.
Anyway, it's been really good to be able to catch you before you go off, and just get a rundown on how the marathon went. And by all accounts, it was as good for you as it looked on paper to the rest of us.
Yeah, it was good. I was sort of humbled and taken aback that I had so many people messaging, and then for people to be messaging on a group chat that you've got cracking on for the Loch Ness 24, and I was like, Jesus Christ, okay.
Yeah.
People actually do care. I know people say they care, but when you see that, it's like, okay. Then I got grilling from Giz asking why I wasn't doing the Loch 24.
Well, you've said she's obviously not caught up with the podcast yet. I know she was slightly further behind, but she needs to catch up then and find out why.
I was like, I'd love to, but I can't.
It is unfortunate. Fortunate that you have some time away, but it is well deserved. After finding out that Emily had been the mystery tutor, it would have been great to hear the conversation between you both. But I'm sure there'll be more opportunity. As with our first guest Hannah, they won't be strangers to the podcast, and you'll just have to listen in, won't you, Steve, and find out what's said.
Yeah, I'll actually have to listen to the podcast.
Anyway, I think at that though we'll let you get on, get prepared for your well-deserved rest, a nice week away, and I'll jump into this interview with the fabulous Emily and Hannah. Our guests today, yes, guests plural, feature highly on my daily personal feed, each day fashioning radiant smiles, all the while throwing themselves into a wide variety of situations, usually involving water. From marathon running to cold water dipping and everything in between, these ladies are no strangers to a little adventure. Whether it's a day submerged neck deep in a loch sporting fetching purple costumes, or the daunting idea for one of these poor ladies meeting me for the first time at the Loch Ness 24 as part of the Who Dropped the Dibber team, there are a few questions to ask and stories to share. So let's just do that by welcoming Emily in the Outdoors and Han Fan Ventures, Emily and Hannah, to the podcast. That was good. I managed to get that. How are you both getting on?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, very well. Very well. It's bank holiday Monday. Happy day.
Have you had a nice long bank holiday?
Yeah, well, for me, yes. It's been pretty quiet. I've had a busy month, so I was looking forward to a very quiet weekend. But I think Hannah's got the more interesting story of her weekend.
Well, I think I've had a much quieter month than you have. So yeah, we've actually been away for the weekend. Taking all 4 dogs for the first time away in the van, which was interesting.
I saw that photo this morning. Now, which dog is it? The one that doesn't normally get into the bedroom?
Sky. So Sky is our rescue dog that we rescued off a farm. And she is the most loving out of all 4 of ours. She just does not leave your side at all. So the fact that we normally lock her out of the bedroom, in the van we can't do that. So we wake up, she goes full on stealth mode and manages to get in the bed with her head on the pillow under the duvet. And I just don't know how she does it.
As someone that actually has the dog in the bed situation, I can fully kind of sympathise there, because what they do is sometimes super stealthy. They should be training with the Marines or something, or showing them how it's done.
Well, we normally can't show favouritism for like one dog getting on the bed, or I just don't know.
You would have no bed left.
Exactly.
You'd both be sleeping on the floor.
They're not exactly like small dogs either.
But we're not going to talk about Emily's busy month too much. For other reasons, which I'm not going to announce because that's not for me to do. And it hasn't been announced elsewhere, so it'll become apparent to anyone that follows Emily's very soon. But we're going to jump into the question straight away, because we are time limited in a way, because unlike the chaos that usually ensues between myself and Steve, I don't want to put it upon both of you as well. I don't want to take too much of your time. So I think let's begin with, let's get a little bit of a background for anyone listening. Social media has been great for bringing all 3 of us together in some shape or form. But for both of you, the digital presence has gone a little bit further to more of a regular adventure meetup and activities perspective. Can you tell everyone a little bit of how you first met and a bit of background about your adventures and how the friendship's grown since?
Who's going first?
I'll let you go first.
I know. Do you know, I was actually thinking about this and I'm going, I don't even remember exactly how we started talking. I mean, I've got an idea of, I think it was like the December challenge, because I had just created like the Emily in the Outdoors because I had a personal one, but my kids didn't want to be featured on it anymore. So I thought I'll just have a brand new one, that it is just all about outdoorsy swimming, running stuff. And then we started doing that dipping every day, and obviously we were tagging the same kind of things. And next thing you know, it's like you can start showing up on each other's feed, and we just started chatting and things, and realised that Hannah had a very similar sense of humour to myself. And then also like that, it's the community kind of growth as well. Like when you're having a bit of a rough day, you're just kind of reaching out, and next thing you know, you forget that you were relative strangers before this, but then it doesn't really quite feel like that either. Am I right, Hannah? I mean,
yeah, so I couldn't actually remember either. I think obviously at some point we ended up following each other, and then I actually looked back in my messages, and I think I must have commented on something that you'd put on, and before I knew it, the conversation just went wild. We were just chatting away, and this was on the 3rd of January. And then I think maybe a couple of weeks into it, we'd sent a few messages, and I said, I'm going to the lakes. It'd be cool if you could come and meet up. So before you know it, I was actually already meeting another Emily in the lakes, and it was just supposed to be the 2 of us going for a walk, going for a dip. Anything that I plan always gets out of hand very quickly, always. So before I knew it, I think there was 7 of us all meeting up in the lakes, and I kind of said, where are you from? And obviously I Googled the distance and it was like 2 hours 18 for me and 2 hours 18 for Emily. I was like, you should come. You should just come.
It's a sign. Yeah, and I'm not somebody you need to ask twice. I pretty much just say yes to everything. I pretend that I don't, but I can.
I think you messaged back. I think you messaged back within 24 hours saying, I've booked a place to stay. I'm coming.
I mean, having seen some of the chat on the Who Would Drop the Dibber team chat, Emily, that doesn't surprise me.
No, I know. But life is for living, and if you don't try new things, and like Hannah said, it was like 2 hours, 18 minutes, and we had been to the lakes the last couple of years, so I sort of knew the roads roughly quite well, but it was also like, do you know what am I doing this weekend? Like, especially January is such a rubbish kind of month as well. You've got that high after Christmas, or you high at Christmas, and then it all kind of plummets.
Yeah.
And you go, what else can you do? But we actually had, it's quite a good weekend, like weather-wise, for January. Yeah. So worth it, completely worth it. And everything was cheaper. My accommodation was pretty cheap.
So yeah, we pretty much rocked up in Ullswater, had a hug, said hello, and within 10 minutes of meeting each other for the first time, we were swimming in the lake.
Yep. Stripped off, no shame, in that water for far too long, can we just say?
Yes.
It must have been really cold as well, though. The air temperature might not have been too bad, but was the water not a bit cold?
Oh, I think the air temperature was worse, actually, because it was a bit of wind.
Right. It was really windy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, so that was us, firm friends, and I'm in Hannah's van after that, talking to her man. A cup of tea.
And it's just kind of grown from there, hasn't it? You've now got what looks like a regular group of all ladies, isn't it? There's no really any guys there, and it's kind of. Can you give us an idea of how much it's grown since, and how big your group is now, your regular group?
It kind of varies. It's whoever's free at the time. So I think we met up the end of January, and then the end of February, I went up to Emily because you were hosting a dip for some ladies, and I was like, yeah, I can make the 4-hour trip. And then I think we'd already actually booked in for the weekend after. So I actually ended up going to Loch Lomond 2 weekends on the trot. Because I was absolutely devastated that Emily lives so close to the Munros and had never been up a Munro. So I was like, that's it. I'm coming to Scotland. I'm going to take you up your first Munro. That's what's happening. and Emily just went, yes, okay.
I took so much persuading, but the answer was yes.
The 4-hour, to me though, Hannah, it doesn't surprise me, having seen how far you go on any given weekend. And it could be south, it could be north. I think one weekend you just so happen to be up in John O'Groats, and it's just, you're all over the shop. It doesn't seem to stop you at any time.
No, so that particular trip, I had promised my partner we would go to Cornwall, and it came to the Friday morning, and we were supposed to be going to Cornwall, and we had literally a foot of snow, and we were driving back from having the diesel heater fixed in our van, and it was like, oh, it's going to be really cold if we don't get it fixed. Anyway, it was all sorted, and the snow just looked amazing. And he went, oh, the snow looks so good on the hills. And I went, do you know where the snow would look good? On the mountains. So literally an hour before we left the house, we packed and we headed north instead of south. So instead of going to Land's End, we went to John O'Groats.
No better place. I was there just Saturday. Unfortunately, didn't stop, but no better place.
It's no better place. I mean, I just love Scotland. Obviously, it's just the mountains and everything. It's just amazing. But yeah, any chance I get, it's a standing joke in our house that the sat-nav's broken and it only goes.
That actually leads quite nicely on to what is actually my second question, and it is specifically for you, Hannah. I mentioned in the intro to the actual episode that we have a connection that goes back 19 years.
Is it 19? I couldn't 19. Remember how long it was.
I only know because the job I'm in, I've done for 18 years. and we met the year previous to that. So 19-ish. But we've kind of reconnected on and off over the years, but not so much until we got connected again through Instagram. But over that time, and having checked your Instagram feed, you've started bagging a lot of trig points and Munros. Do you think, though, that your previous ties to the Highlands have really kind of brought that to the forefront of what your adventuring is? Very much so. But I won't say where you used to stay, because that's you were on the West Coast, and it was very much in the middle of all the Munros. So I think before you answer it, though, I'll give some context for anyone that doesn't know what a Munro is. It's a mountain in Scotland that its height exceeds 3,000 feet, but not all mountains are Munros. There's a specific list. And if you can, Hannah, can you tell us how many that you've bagged so far?
So my Munro bagging journey actually started when we did the NC 500 the first time, which was June 21. And we did the most northerly Munro, which is Ben Hope.
It's a lovely Ben
as well. The weather was perfect. Mm-hmm. It was just stunning. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe that actually when I did live in Scotland, I didn't actually bag any Munros that I am aware of, unless I was too young to actually remember it. I don't think I did. And the other thing is, I don't think with the age that I was, I appreciated the Highlands so much. It's only probably in the last maybe 4 or 5 years that I've really appreciated just how beautiful it is, and how much I miss it. So yeah, I grew up in Gairloch on the West Coast, and it really is in the heart of the Highlands. There's just mountains everywhere and beaches, and it's
a beautiful area of the country. It really is. And I'm the same. I was only in the last few years that I've really appreciated where I stay. And for me, Gairloch is the proper Highlands. Anything really south of Aviemore, maybe towards Perth, I don't really class anything south of the Cairngorms as Highlands. I think it's very difficult for anyone to call it, because it's just so different. Just the whole feel of the Highlands is really in that area, or the area that I stay in, I would say. Yeah. I also haven't bagged a Munro, though, and I stay amongst quite a few.
This also devastates me.
I know. I don't appreciate them. They're there. I don't appreciate them enough. But I have said this year I am going to do one.
So I think going back to kind of, obviously the Munro bagging started when we did the NC 500. The trig bagging in general, I think really kind of started maybe like 4 years ago. And at the time I didn't actually realise how bad my mental health was. And basically every chance I got, I was running to the top of a hill to run away from everything that was going on. And it took me probably a good 18 months or so to actually finally have that crash where I realised there was something wrong. But every time I was getting to the point, I was bagging trigs before work just to get me through the day. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's just kind of the space and the freedom that you feel when you're on top of a hill. It was always like morning brew with a view, and it was just that kind of headspace that I needed before I could even tackle my day at the time.
Yeah.
The sad thing is I didn't realize what was happening to me until it was too late.
I mean, for myself and Emily, we kind of have a similar, because running is that therapy of getting out. So chucking yourself up a trig point to run away from your problems is quite a relatable subject to a lot of the fitness community, not just running or Munro bagging or trig point hunting, for the wider community. But it is so important to take that time to try and figure out what's wrong, but also have something that works for you. So if it was working for you at the time, all the better. But you were 4 or 5 in the morning going up a hill with the dogs and then going to work.
On my own.
Yeah.
At that point, I was setting off quite regularly in the dark on my own.
Oof. And you've got to the bottom of it now. So again, it's leading on quite nicely to my next question, and I think it's probably more what most people know you both for on your Instagram feeds, because it's the crazy world of cold water dipping, and we've touched on it already there. But we've mentioned the group and how you got to know each other because of it. But can you give anyone listening, including myself, a little bit of an insight into the virtues of throwing yourself into the multitude of watery bodies that you've got? You've got lochs, rivers, waterfalls, and also just submerging yourselves in a tub in the back garden. Can you give everyone a kind of understanding of how you feel pre, post, and during?
Will I go first?
You go first this time, Emily. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you'd probably asked me a few years ago, I mean, I never would have went in to see or anything, the thought of something touching you. But yeah, COVID hit, and then you find that you have all this free time. And you start to realise that it became just like a bit of a buzz as well. It's one of those things you kind of surprise yourself by doing it. So there's a part of you that's quite proud of yourself because you're really doing something different, but also pushing yourself in that boundary. Sometimes with running, you've kind of done a lot of things, so it's something new. But for me, I do find that it does kind of calm the mind a bit. I can dip at any time, and it's not like, oh, if I dip before bed, I'll be buzzing and alive and I'll never be able to sleep. It actually does the sort of opposite. It doesn't make you sleepy, but it sort of quietens you down a bit, because I think it was like one of the books I'd read, and all the documentaries and things you hear about. It's your body is struggling, well, not struggling, but it's coping with the cold, and that's what its response is doing. So all the problems and all the thoughts in your mind that's just not important right now.
Yeah.
Your body has to deal with what you're facing. So it just kind of snaps you out of the worry, the tension, the kind of stress kind of feeling, because your body's just trying to adjust to the cold water. And, you don't even need to be in for that long. I mean, I'm quite an advocate for don't time yourself, like as in, I got 5 minutes yesterday, I should get 6 today. It's more just some days a minute's enough. Other days, 6 minutes is what you need. But you just, you become a bit more knowledgeable about what your body can do, but also don't push it to the extreme, because you're just in a tub in your back garden.
You don't want to push it to the extreme as well, because you can become hypothermic from it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think just always anyone listening that hasn't tried it, practice safety. I think the recommendation is no longer than 10 minutes, isn't it? For most of the temperatures that you get in the area, because you may become hypothermic.
Yeah, I mean, you should never push it, but you're also like, just because you've been doing it for 6 months or anything longer doesn't mean that you should last this amount of time. Yeah. I mean, I say, and I've said on my Instagram that, there's times where certain times of the month, especially for a woman, your body temperature's all over the place.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just not feeling it. And we have many a conversation between myself and Hannah about, I can't face this tonight. And sometimes you just go, I'm not doing it. But usually you do feel better for it. But it's maybe the quickest, or we can't even get, below the waistline in, because you're like, you can't. In post running, I mean, it's brilliant. If you're a runner, it's brilliant for that.
Great, I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know all the scientific mumbo jumbo behind it, but it really does help. But again, going for it post run, you're not in for long, because your body temperature does go down after you finish the run. So it's being quite careful about, what you're actually putting your body through at that time as well.
Exactly.
But over to you, Hannah.
I was going to say, I think you very quickly kind of tune into your own body. I mean, there's been days where, like, I've texted Emily, I was like, I'm really not feeling it today. And we've had a quick conversation, and she's usually going, get a grip, go and get in your tub. And I text her back 10 minutes later, okay, I've done it. I've been in and I feel good now. And then there's other days you literally stand in the tub. There was one day, because we're documenting our 100 dips in 100 days. And I was stood in the tub, and I'd literally just got up to my, like, above my knees, and I was shivering, and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I even doing this? And I kind of stood there for a good, probably 5 minutes going, I hate this. I hate this. Why am I doing this? And the minute I'd kind of got in and settled, calmed my breathing and got out, and I probably did only last 30 seconds or a minute that particular day. And I was like, I hate this. I hate this. Why am I doing it? And I got out and I was like, that's why I'm doing it, because I feel great now. And it's like an instant thing where you just, I mean, I don't know about you, Emily, but I come out and do this like little victory shuffle thing every time I've done it. I don't know why.
I know. I can't do it without taking a picture. I'm like, I have to take a picture. I'm in here.
Yeah, but we're documenting our little 100 dips. So we kind of have to have the proof at the minute. But I mean, wild dipping is just, this year it's taken me to so many amazing places, because it like we'll get on a Saturday morning, it's like, right, I need to go and find a waterfall, or oh, I've seen this place on Instagram, we need to go and find this. So not just the kind of dipping, but it's taken me to so many new places, even just around my local area. And then when we were like doing it through December, and I was dipping in Loch Acklety, that was one of my favorite places.
And that is a really, for anyone who doesn't know, especially in December, January, February, because of the snow melt that you get in it, it's, I don't want to swear, it's really cold. It is super cold. I've gone in, I've done a little bit of submersion, but that's only through paddleboarding, which you both do as well. But the idea of going there on a regular basis, I know people swim in it and they're just psychos. You're all psychos. I'd rather go in the North Sea than go in Acklety.
So on that note, so we came to Scotland for Christmas, and I dipped in Gairloch on Christmas Eve, and it was 9 degrees. It was amazing. And then I dipped on the East Coast on Christmas Day, which was also amazing, but it was 6 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, the temperature difference. And I think my coldest dip in that whole time was 2.5 degrees. And I can't even tell you the name of the loch, because I'm not even sure where I was. And a friend had taken me up into the hills somewhere, and the wind chill was freezing. But it was one of my favourite dips, but my absolute favourite was definitely Loch Acklety, when it was a really calm day, but there was snow coming down. So that I love how the snow kind of mutes everything out. It just makes everything really quiet. And I was literally just stood in the water, and there's like snow coming down around me, and I was like, this is just amazing. What am I doing? But
it's a remote place as well, but for a Highlander, or for anyone in Scotland, it's not super remote, but at the same time it is, especially when the snow's coming down and it's muting it out. It's like you're on a different planet.
Absolutely. I think I did actually go to Loch Acklety 3, maybe 4 times in the space of that 10 days. And I think there was one person just getting out of the water when we rocked up, and he disappeared by the time we actually got out and got down to the water. It was just amazing.
It is really picturesque, especially with what looks like the floating island. I know it's fixed point, but it's such an optical illusion.
Yeah, it's such a stunning place. But I think one of my kind of weirdest dips, shall we say, was Loch Ness. So we actually went down, we went down to the south. Is it Fort Augustus? Yeah, I couldn't just remember it. So where the canal and the river come, there's a little beach in the middle. So I decided that was the place I was going to walk in, but it didn't go deep very quickly. So I kind of had to move into the flow of the river. Now, obviously, whether you believe or not, Nessie, when you're stood in the water and you can feel the kind of the flow from the river going behind you, there is something that plays with your mind. Like, legends start somewhere. And it was just
believe.
We're going to be chucking Emily into Loch Ness. I won't necessarily. I have gone into it because of the event that preceded the 24 was the Beast Race, which is still run on the east coast in Aberdeenshire. But there used to be one at Loch Ness, and you had to go into the loch. And I know exactly what you mean, Hannah, because the loch gets very deep very quick, and it's just that sudden whoosh of cold and everything that goes along with it. You can't help but think that there's something gonna drag you down.
Yes, definitely. It really does mess with your head. And I think one of the other places that kind of messed with our head Emily, I don't know if you'll agree, the Devil's Pulpit.
Oh, yeah.
That's yes.
Now, is that the place you went and there was the post about, is that where the guys came down? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So Emily had also never been to the Devil's Pulpit, which is 40 minutes from yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, right, it's really cool. I'm going to take you down there. I want to go and dip. And when I went the first time, I wasn't a cold water dipper. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. But in my head, I wanted to go back there. So I was like, right, this is what we're doing. So obviously, Emily was like, yes, of course. No problem.
Okay. But she put my arm right behind my back and forced me down there.
I think we can definitely agree I'm generally the instigator of these things, and a lot of my friends just go along with it.
I think by sounds of it as well, Emily, you've got rubber arms, don't you? They don't take much bending to go behind you.
No, I mean, happy passenger. That's me. And I'd say I'm quite impulsive, so I just was like, I'll make anything work, if I can.
So we went down to the Devil's Pulpit, which, if for anyone that hasn't been, you really need to Google it. It's beautiful. But the river kind of runs through this like sandstone gorge. So it looks like the river is running like blood red. And there's one part where it's really deep and you can't see, but it is really, really deep red. And we were like, right, this is where we're going in. I didn't end up going in, not properly. I stayed where it was really shallow. Emily did. Emily just went for it. I was so proud of her. But I was like freaking out, going, Emily, why am I being such a wimp? What is wrong with me?
And then she's doing that, and I'm going, should I be scared? And there's these little bubbles coming up.
Oh no!
As well, and you go, what's down there?
It was when I watched the time lapse back on the GoPro, and you could see the water kind of swirling, which you didn't really notice at the time. But when you watched it back, I was like, that's creepy. So yeah, I did submerge, but in this kind of shallow area where I could still see underneath me. Once I'd stopped kind of freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did do a post on the Devil's Pulpit about, it wasn't something I had ever considered before about feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So obviously going to these remote places is wonderful. But obviously Emily and I had just got out of the water and we're stood there in our swimming costumes, and 4 men appeared into the Devil's Pulpit. And it's a very steep, wet and slippy place to get out of. Yeah. And all of a sudden they kind of appeared, and we sort of said hello, but they didn't speak to us, which actually made us feel really, really uncomfortable, because normally people just go, have you just been in there? God, you're mad, you're mental.
If you meet people from Glasgow, if anybody out with Glasgow and Scotland are listening to this, Scottish people are the most friendliest at times, and that is, like you say, Hannah, is the first thing they say is going, have you been in there? Oh my God, like, you are crazy. So you have that kind of conversation, but like Hannah said, they didn't say anything, and you're just standing there in your swimming costume and feeling very naked, let's put it that way.
I think with a lot of it though, there's a lot of crossovers between what you're doing there and running, because as you both probably be able to agree with here, for a female runner, if you're even not on your own, or if you're in a group and you see a group of guys or one guy, if they don't talk to you or at least acknowledge you, it can be very off-putting. And as a male runner, and you sometimes see a female runner, I will go the opposite direction, or I'll speak to them just so I'm no harm. I'm going to go the opposite direction. But to have 4 guys appear and not saying, they probably just did think that you are both crazy ladies, and it's not worth talking to you because you're crazy. Yeah.
Well, I think it was definitely part of that, wasn't there? Because actually we decided to climb out of there in our towels and go and get changed at the top. And as I got out, I was like, Emily, I've left my gloves down there, and they're my good gloves, I can't leave them.
And I was like, I can't go back down there. I mean, I'm a terrible climber, scrabbler, plus I'm always panicking that I'm going to fall and like the running is over, so I was like, how much for the gloves?
I could genuinely see the panic on her face. I was like, I've got an idea. You go and stand at the edge of the gorge and you watch. I said, at least here you've got a phone signal. So I kind of went back down and I thought, I'll just break the ice. And I just went, oh, I forgot my gloves. And they kind of looked around and picked them up. And actually, I think they had very little English with the way that they did eventually speak to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why. And I really overanalyzed it for quite a while after. I thought, I jumped to that conclusion because they didn't speak. But actually, the more I thought about it, they maybe just didn't understand what we said the first time, and they kept themselves to themselves. But I felt really guilty for jumping to that conclusion. But it's just made me more aware of places to go. And I think because it was quite late on in the day, and because of the remoteness and the access down to it, I think that kind of all of a sudden really all played on our minds.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's called the Devil's Pulpit, it was just...
It doesn't help, no.
I know, what way to go.
What, you're saying, Emily, what's down there? That's all the missing bodies. That's what's down there.
But like you said, Steve, like the whole thing about running, and especially as a female, I would never run. I mean, it's just like ingrained into you without even thinking about it. I run where it's well lit. I don't run where it's quiet. It's all just natural. So, and that's the thing when you have to think about with wild swimming. A lot of places are remote, or they're just a bit out of the way. There's less, it's not busy. You're not in front of an Asda dipping. I mean, you might be. But
strange you were, yeah,
very strange. Maybe
you shouldn't have to. We've mentioned this before, myself and Steve. You shouldn't have to feel like that, but unfortunately, it's just a consequence of the society we live in now and how big the population has grown. For every 9 decent guys out there, there's always going to be one that's up to no good, and usually the one that's up to no good is the one that'll be around when you don't want them to be.
Exactly.
But we won't cover that too much. We won't sour what is actually, because it's just going to be audio for here. And just talking about cold water dipping, you can see how radiant your smiles are just talking about it anyway. But I think, what's my next question? Does it tie in at all? Because that's been really good so far. They've both tied in.
I was just going to say, my actually cold water dipping my first couple of dips was in the bath, and it was horrendous trying to lie down into cold water. So my partner suggested he was going to clean out the spare wheelie bin and let me dip in the wheelie bin.
I've seen a lot of that.
Do you know what? It works really well. You don't need to spend lots of money on one of these pods. As great as they are, I absolutely love my pod, and I'm so glad I upgraded because my little legs did struggle to get in and out of the wheelie bin. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, the wheelie bin is great. It would cover like a full body type thing, but yeah, I mean, it would be also almost a submerge for me and Hannah, unless there's a step in there for us.
It's fine for someone my height, but not for you both yet. I do have my tub. My tub has arrived.
Have you filled it up yet?
It's not fully arrived. So I've got the first cover, the inflatable white cover, but the all-weather cover hasn't arrived. So they're apparently sending it this week. They've had manufacturing difficulties.
Do you need the other cover right now?
Just for keeping it nice, and so I don't have to empty it and clean it all the time.
I feel like there's some excuses going on.
No, not at all. Not at all. I did love going in.
Eating excuses.
I did love going into the North Sea on the 1st of January. That was phenomenal. Doing the Duch and going in, and like you said, Hannah, it's very cold on the East Coast because you don't have the stream coming in on like you do on the West Coast. It does wrap around. You get some of the heat transfer. But when your air temperature is so cold and the water's still warmer, it was so nice. And then I went in a month later, or the beginning of February, and it was totally opposite. The air temperature it was jarring going in because the water was so cold compared to the air temperature. So that's the part that I don't really look forward to now, is as the temperature gets hotter and your body temperature gets up, it's then chucking yourself in something absolutely flipping freezing.
So have we inspired you to dip more often? Not necessarily every day, but more often.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it will be almost a daily occurrence. And it's simply for what Emily had said, it's really good for runners. And I was doing it when we had our lazy spa up. I was doing cold in the bath as much as I could, and then hot in the hot tub. Now we don't have it up because the price of running a hot tub is not great. So it's packed away at the moment. But I'll be doing cold in the tub outside, and I've got a jacket as well, the really long ones, which for me, it would, both of you wearing my dry jacket, you would just disappear. But then hot in the bath. So I found it really helpful around about the Loch Ness Marathon for muscles. And since I haven't been doing it, I have noticed a few niggles coming in. So hopefully those little bits and pieces, the final parts will arrive this week and I will be able to get into it.
Well, we'll just be messaging you daily until that.
We'll add you to our little group, 100 dips, 100 days.
We need a man.
We need a man, yeah. I mean, there are other people, other guys that do it. I have noticed Bob doing it, but he's not consistent at doing it. And I think Ryan's done it as well, but he did it at the Lululemon getaway. So I don't know whether he's a convert or not, but I will be asking him because he's our next guest. Yes. So I'll be asking him that. But this is tying in quite nicely again into my next question. And it is specifically for you, Emily. So we've already mentioned for yourself, Hannah, you do run. And you've been making huge strides in your running on Strava lately. But for this question is targeting Emily and for a specific marathon and a particular person that ties both myself and Emily together from the 2022 Edinburgh Marathon, and that would be Spider-Man. Does Spider-Man give you some good or bad flashbacks, Emily?
Do you know, it was one of those things. I mean, I loved it when I was listening to the podcast before and you mentioned it and I thought, oh my God, this is one of these things where the world is so small, because I'm going, me and Steve must have been near each other because I had close. Spider-Man too.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man had a bit of a gut, and and the suit was like half like across the other side of his face. I mean, he must have been sweating. I mean, good on these people. I can barely run in a vest and shorts sometimes. But that was towards the end that I saw him and I thought, no, I'm getting in front of Spider-Man.
And it was the same for me. It was the final few kilometres.
Yes.
And there was nothing. I've got such bad flashbacks of everyone cheering your name because you were quite spread out by that point. Everyone's going, come on, Steve, you can do it. And I was feeling terrible by that point. And then, oh, look, there's Spider-Man. And you feel, please just cheer me. Don't cheer Spider-Man who's just coming whizzing past me on the right-hand side.
It's like running with like a local celebrity, you're just like wanting somebody to go, you're doing really well, but it's like, oh look, Spider-Man.
And he's just gliding as well. He looked tired, but he didn't look as bad as I felt.
Because it was really hot.
It was very hot. It wasn't
forecast to be hot. I know Edinburgh is always hot on that marathon, but I don't think it was forecast to be hot, and then it was pretty warm. And I thought, see, like I say, these people that wear costumes, I mean, more power to them. I'd be in a ditch somewhere, just being like, take your charity money back.
As a kilted runner, I can tell you it is hot, but even wearing a kilt is not as hot as wearing what will be very restrictive.
I think just like anything over your face, and even I overheat very, very quickly, so I'm like, in the middle of winter, I would wear a vest or a t-shirt. So the fact that you've got something covering your arms would make me quite not panicked, but like very restricted.
Yeah.
And that in front of your face, like that kind of morph suit type feeling. You're like, no. Overall, though, did you enjoy Edinburgh? Was it a good marathon for yourself? Edinburgh was a bit of a surprise for me because it wasn't something I had on my calendar. So I was doing the Ultra X 50k at the start of May, and then one of my colleagues, we were doing it as like a work thing. Well, work colleagues that were doing it. She fell pregnant, so she wasn't going to do the Ultra X, and she went, I've got a place for Edinburgh. She went, do you want to just pay the £15 transfer and you can do it? And I was like, well, I've got all that training in my legs. And I've always wanted the t-shirt. I mean, I know that's ridiculous, but the t-shirt is gorgeous for Edinburgh, apart from the fact that it doesn't say 26.2 on it anymore. No, it doesn't. No. A bit disappointing, but it's a great t-shirt. Lovely fit. And send me an extra one. And And I thought, I'm just going to do it. And it was a really great kind of experience because I didn't have like a time in mind. It wasn't my A race or anything, it was just go round and see how you got on. And it was probably a good thing because it got so hot. I'm not really a warm weather runner. Yeah. Even though I run all year, I'm still, you're in Scotland, you're not really that used to it. But I was quite happy just to have a bit of a walk and stuff. And I actually really liked it. I mean, I like running by water. Like that's just a really nice sensation when you can see the sea. But But a tough run with everybody coming back on you, that is tough.
That's the worst part for me. It was when we hit the turning point, or just beforehand, you see everyone coming back at you. And I knew some of the elite runners, and my brother was there, and Sarah, Homer was there, and I saw all these people going past me, and it's like, I'm not anywhere near the end.
Yeah. And I've never ran it before, so you don't know how long you've got.
Yeah.
So you turn back, and that bit you turn is gorgeous. Like it's so nice.
Really nice. But it caught me out because the gravel. It was just my shoes weren't great for that, and I could feel it.
What is it down there?
It is the big house. I can't remember the name of it, but it's some like stately home, and it was really nice. I didn't expect it.
No,
but I also didn't expect the sun. So
and there were people,
surprises.
So this again is like, if you're running Edinburgh, be mindful of, you know, anybody running Edinburgh. It's like it's always the hottest weekend in Scotland. And there were so many people at the side of the road getting treatment for obviously dehydration and things, because it was meant to be quite overcast and cool, and it was just like
it started off that way, so maybe like 5 minutes,
and Edinburgh Marathon starts late. I mean, every marathon seems to start late now, but the half starts at like 8:30 or 8 in the morning or something.
It does, yeah.
You know, and you go, oh God, I wish they would switch it over for the marathon, because it'd be so amazing to start early.
Later, please. 10 o'clock's fine for me, because Loch Ness is 10 o'clock as well. 10 o'clock's fine for me.
No, it's just, I just would rather get up, have my breakfast and go. Then I start thinking about, I mean, I'm always thinking about food. So I'm just like, when do I eat? When do I eat again? But now, because I think I've done some of the ultras as well, I'm quite comfortable eating en route.
Yeah.
And I tend to try and eat. I'll have a couple of gels or like those kind of Cliff Block things to chew on, but a lot of times I'll have actual food, because I'm running for like 4.5 hours in a marathon. I'm going to miss a lunch. You know, like
I'm a 4.5 hour marathon runner as well. I don't have that thought.
I'm just like, it's lunchtime.
I genuinely think that's another reason why we're good friends as well.
Yeah. I'm
constant
like,
food.
Well, we do, and this is obviously nothing to be Edinburgh, but Hannah has seen me hangry when we did our first Munro, and the lessons were learned that day.
So what you're saying is, for what was going to be part of my final question, is make sure that we have plenty of food available for you at Loch Ness.
Big time. A happy Emily is a fed Emily. Honestly.
To touch on, you've mentioned there though the Ultra X50. Was that the Fort Augustus to Inverness?
Yes, it was. So that was my very first.
Really?
First Ultra, yeah. So we did that. It was, like I say, it was a bunch of work colleagues. We'd done a couple other like kind of fitnessy things, like remotely. They're all spread about, mainly down in England. So they all came up, and there was 7 of us that did it. So we just did our own thing. We didn't sit together. We're all totally different paces and things. But it was fantastic. Like, I absolutely loved it. And
you got good weather for that as well. I only know that because there was an election on. I happened to be working the election, and all these people were coming in looking for their numbers. So I was like, what's going on? And this guy happened to say he'd won his entry. He'd never been to Inverness, never been anywhere in Scotland, and he was like really nervous about finding everything.
Oh,
so sweet. And it wasn't just that. It was Angeline Mayer, who used to be on Instagram. She's a good friend of Lee's. Mm-hmm. She'd run it as well, and I only knew that she was up because I saw a photo of her and her dog at the local park run in my town, and I hadn't gone that day. So it was kind of like a series of things. You know, people that have been in the area have run that event, and I would like to run it, but hopefully I'll be there supporting Kaylee this year.
Yes, I'm so excited for her doing it. She's just going to smash it. Like, she's done amazing training, but I would highly recommend it. It was a great experience. It was so different as well, because you're navigating your own course to a point. You know, you've got it on your watch. They do have little flags. I mean, they have loads of flags in very obvious places, but then when you go into the forests and things, there's barely a flag, and you're just like, I could hear the finish line at one point, and I thought, I don't even know if I'm going the right direction, but I don't care. Just go down, and then all of a sudden you'd see a red flag and get so excited because you know, you were obviously on the right path. But I loved it, and it was gorgeous. But I could see why people loved ultras, because that whole walking hills and, you know, just taking your time, eating. What is not to love?
You should, hopefully you'll get happy flashbacks then, because I'm pretty sure the field that you finished in is the field next to where we'll be camping. Yeah, doors. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah. That was. Although that is difficult when you walked in. I ran in, and I ran in, and you had to do like a lap of the field to finish, and you could see the finish line there. You go, and then I finished, and the toilets were back at where you first run into the field.
Oh no!
Who designed this? I just get changed in front of everybody.
A man designed that. That's why.
A man designed.
No, I would love to give it a go someday. Having run it though, would you consider running the Loch Ness Marathon, because it is a very similar gradient?
I've done the Loch Ness Marathon.
Oh, you have you? Oh, did I miss that? How have I missed that?
I did that last October.
So you did it at the same time as everyone else. You were there when myself, Kaylee, Lee, and the rest of the Dippers were there.
Yeah, must have been.
Wow. How did I miss that on your feed? And how have I not learned that since?
Well, my Instagram was only created in December.
Right, okay.
So I wouldn't have recorded it on that one.
We had the oddest thing with that, because Kaylee was on the same bus as myself, Lee, and Giz. We were all on the bus with Kaylee, and I thought it was her, but we didn't really have that much of a connection to that point. And it's only been recently I said, were you on the same bus? Did you see bubbles flying past? And she said, yeah, I was on that bus. I did hear what you guys were getting up to. But you'll learn more about that anyway. It was all tame.
Yeah. I would say, though, I wasn't a huge fan. No, it's just because, and it's lovely where you are, but like I say, I like to run and see water a lot of the time.
You see a lot of water. It's just very static.
That much water, Steve.
Is it generally coming out of the sky?
No, did we have rain? I'm not sure. I don't think we did.
No, we didn't have rain, and it was actually a nice day. But do you know, there's pictures at Loch Ness Marathon that are taken for their publicity, and that's the only time you see that loch. I'm not kidding, Steve. You can.
I was looking through the trees. I was looking. Well, apart from the start, now, Anna knows the area. So you start at the top of the hill at Fort Augustus.
That's lovely. I liked up there.
Yeah, it's so nice. And then you head down to White Bridge, and you don't see the water there. You don't see the water for the first quarter of the marathon. But then if you're like me, looking anywhere but the road in front of you, you can see it through the trees.
So I think because you expect it to be really much more. Yeah. You expect it to be more. So because I'd done the Loch Ness, the Ultra X thing, I knew how gorgeous it was. But I think because you're just basically on a B road, and I think when you get to like Doors, and it feels like a never ending road, and then you get to Inverness and the finish line is that's heart wrenching. Like you can hear the finish line, but you know you have to go all the way up.
You can almost hear it from Scanieport, that hill coming out of Doors. That's a horrible hill, but you can hear it from so far away. And on a nice day you can see the castle as you're running down this horrible stretch. But you're right, there's nothing worse than coming along that straight and hearing the finish line and knowing that you've still got another, like 3 kilometers to go, about a mile and a bit to go.
I know. So it's not like terrible. It wasn't a terrible marathon. It just was more like, I thought this would be more scenic. I was really struggling. It just felt like endless roads. And just because you're expecting it to be much more, scenic than it was. But I was also like, I'd been ill a few weeks before it. So I think it was just catching up on me a bit that there was 3 of us together, but I was like, just go, leave me. I just need my own headspace. And after that, I got a bit better because I just needed that. Like, I didn't want to hold anybody back or anything. But I ended up catching up with one of the girls right at the end, which was quite funny. But the soup after it was divine, I have to say.
That's a perk of it. It's a very nice perk of it, especially in October. Yeah. Food, definitely. Well, that's going to be a nice surprise even for Lee, because unless you've mentioned to Lee, I don't think he knows. So. And they are coming back up this year because there's a bit of a challenge with our other group, our private group. We have another group. Yeah, you can challenge him about that.
Oh my God, I feel like I've been left out of this.
You can challenge Lee and Giz about that. That's something else.
I feel like I need to up my running and get myself to Loch Ness 24.
I was going to say, why haven't you signed up yet, Hannah? Because I told you only do 1 loop, which is like 4 miles.
I could probably manage that, but the problem is
it's a lot of money for 1 lap.
I could probably manage a couple. My problem is I run with my dogs, so a lot of my running is literally just to exercise my dogs, and I love getting out. And I run with a friend quite regularly. But yeah,
but we can make that happen, Hannah. I'm gonna move questions around here because there was a question specifically for you, and the final question was about the Loch Ness 24 because Emily is a fellow team captain. You are the team captain of Team 4.
Yes,
I am the team captain of Team 1. Not that the numbers don't mean anything.
Nothing, Hannah. Nothing.
They don't mean anything. But although everyone seems to refer to me as like the overall
you are
composer of it, I'm the reason you're all doing it, whether good for good or bad. But what are your expectations of it, Emily and Hannah? Would you consider it? Because the reason we're doing multiple teams, and we're not the only ones. We've since recently found out there's another large corporation coming up, and they're running in separation. And I don't know whether that's because they've maybe seen that we're doing it, or they've been given a heads up by the Loch Ness 24 team, Jono and Jess. We're splitting down because you can only have one member of your team on the course any one time. Especially running at night, and we are planning to run through the night. That can be quite daunting. Even talking about the water and the idea of getting dragged under, you don't know what's there. You also, it's as clear as the forests are, it's your peripheral vision. You're always going to see something to spook you. So we're going to be running multiple people as a little group. So there are opportunities there. We have space in our Team 5 and very close to having a Team 6. So you can run with Emily.
She did say she liked running with dogs. What are you trying to say, Steve?
Now, I was going to say dogs are allowed on the course, but I think only spectating dogs are allowed on the course. I don't think you're allowed to run with an animal.
That's a shame.
But that is a good thing. Like, we will be able to run like together or have company, especially if it's like your turn for a lap and you're not feeling it, because I think there's quite a few of us that will be in the big throes of marathon training as well. So I think a lot of us are trying to get as many laps in just for the experience and the training.
It is really good training, yeah. So you've got, I think the majority of us are averaging six laps, which would be the marathon distance. Yeah, so what's your expectations from it, Emily? Are you just there now for the party atmosphere that we seem to be promoting a lot on not only the podcast but also on our socials? Or are you looking forward to actually a slightly different event where it's a lapping event where you're not just stuck on the course for 4, 5, 6 hours doing an ultra?
Yeah, I mean, I think both. I mean, the party element and food, obviously. If there's a silent disco, I'm there for that. If they decide to bring that back,
I think they are bringing that back specifically for us.
Yes, but there was a couple of times through training. I did Brighton at the start of April. And there was a couple of times through training where, I mean, I had to just mix up my training a bit. And there was one time I did 3 blocks of running on that day. And I think it really actually helped my, maybe not my cardio running, but see, like my mental block of getting started again and running on really tired legs and all that stuff. I think it actually really helps because mentally you go, well, if I could do that, I can do anything.
Yeah.
So if you're running over a 24-hour period, you think, well, that takes some effort in terms of your fitness, but also your mental strength of going, right, here we go again. Because
it might be that you end up getting brought back onto the track at any point of that 24 hours. You might go, you know what, sod it, I'm going back out now. No one else is out. I'll take the dipper and I'll go. And it could be 2:00 in the morning. It could be 5:00 in the morning. And
Steve, you were obviously there last year, and I know you said, like, I think you had a bit of a break, but then it's like, I know there's some people in the team that are really keen to do an a nighttime one. I'm quite keen on doing it as well, but there'll be some people are like, no, that's just not for me, and that's absolutely fine. And I think that's the good thing about this event is it's not like the backyard style ultras where you have to be on the course at all times, like on the hour every hour. It is that way. It's like just as long as one member of your team's, only one of them is allowed to run at one time. Yeah,
that's the only stipulation is there can only be one member from each team on the track, and
you can't double dip.
You can't double dip. You can dip at any point, so you don't have to. And we didn't. We had full intentions to run through the night, but we decided when Lee came back in quite late on, we were going to do I think it was Lee or Jamie came back in quite late on. We were going to do the silent disco. We were the only ones there, which was disappointing. We had one crazy guy came and joined us, but for that time we decided we'd go get some kip. And there was a really bad snore. So in the area, it wasn't one of us. There was a really bad snore in the camp next to us. And we just didn't go out for a few hours. And I woke up early. I thought, you know what, I want to get some dark hours done. It actually started getting light. Went to get the dibber, and there wasn't a dibber there because there also wasn't a Jamie or a Lee there. Not that I was looking in their tents, but it was gone. It was obvious. And I'd walked to the start line, and here was Lee going out as Jamie came back in. So our intentions were to run, but this time round, I think there's more of a seriousness about it from the teams because there's a vast range of capabilities in our athletic backgrounds. We have ultra runners, we have 10k runners, 5k runners. We seem to be very lady heavy at the moment, I think I would say. So I think the guys might be getting picked on and said, you know, get your arse out there and go.
Absolutely. Or get my dinner made for me coming back.
So with that, Hannah, would you potentially be persuaded? You don't have to say yes or no at this point, but is it something that you might consider?
I absolutely love the idea of it. It's just the distance for me. It's like 350 mile. It'd be a good 6-hour journey. I think it is the bank holiday weekend though, isn't it?
The English
bank holiday. We don't get it in Scotland.
Oh, do you not?
No.
Oh, shame. Maybe that makes it a little bit better. It gives me an extra day for travelling.
To give you sort of context as well, Hannah, you wouldn't be the furthest. You wouldn't be coming the furthest. We do have the potential of a camper van. Now, the person is coming from London, but he may be getting a camper van. I don't know whether he's driving it all the way up or whether he's picking it up on the way. But Lewis Dixon is coming up from London, and we also have the Barefoot Daddy, who I was telling you about the other day. Yes. Ben, he is coming up. I'm not actually quite sure where Ben stays, but yeah, he's coming up from Englandshire as well. So, a little bit further south. So yes, you would be in company of travellers. But
it does sound really good. I am very tempted. The only thing that puts me off, I've only ever done one like organised event for running, and that was the Windmill 10k, and it was quite a few years ago. It was before I even really got into any kind of running at all, and it kind of got dumped on me last minute and said, oh, we're going to do this charity. And like you said, Emily, it was one of those where you had to run past the finish line. For, I can't remember, it wasn't that far, but you had to run past it to run back. And I just remember the feeling of devastation. I'm like, but it's there. Can I just walk across? And it was awful. And it was, I think I was kind of like one of the last ones to finish. And it was, yeah, I think now I would be in a much better place mentally and physically to do something like that. Because like I said, it was kind of thrown on me last minute, but it was just, that's my only experience of an organised event. And because it wasn't like an amazing one, it does just kind of put you off a little bit.
Yeah. Unless you've been part of a multitude of events like myself and Emily, where some of them are going to be good, but some of them will be bad, but the majority of them are good. It always encourages to go for the next one. We'll have to find out then if it is the bank holiday weekend. It's usually an adventure time for yourself and your mister, and there's no reason why you can't take the dogs up and the van, do the weekend, and then go on a little bit of more adventuring afterwards. And he could act as cheer squad as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to worry about camping in a tent like the rest of us.
We'll put him in the camp kitchen so we can keep Emily and myself fed.
Oh, that'd be another van. And actually, that again, it's quite. This is almost like I've written it, and you simply follow a script. I haven't told you. It was going to be my second to last question, but specifically for yourself, Anna, and because you have that capability of taking the van with you. Can you give everyone a little bit of an insight to van life, especially being that's part of your name? How did that come about? And you've obviously done a lot of work to the van on the last few months, but what's the future for van life?
I mean, eventually we would absolutely love to upgrade. So we're currently driving around in a T5, with 4 dogs in tow. So yeah, it's cozy. In fact, actually last night when we parked up and it was kind of coming up to bedtime, we got out with the dogs, and the guy that was stood at the side of us just looked and went, well, I didn't expect 4 dogs to get out that. Yeah, so I met Steve, my partner, through work.
All the best guys are called Steve. We've said this before,
absolutely.
And I don't have other Steve here to agree with there.
You've got another Steve for the crew. So yeah, we met through work, and quickly got on very well. And within a couple of weeks, we actually ended up living together. And very quickly, obviously, we were getting along great, and we decided we were going to sell both of our caravans and Steve's car to buy a camper. So we sold like quite decent sized caravans, and as Steve says, we swapped it for a tin can. But do you know what? It's the best thing. I mean, we've had a few issues with it, and like you said, we have done quite a lot of work on it recently. Not necessarily all of that was because we wanted to, it was because we had to. And it was one thing led to another. So we've quickly learned how to recarpet the van, because we'd had leaky windows, which apparently is a common fault, and it had leaked all over the electrics. So Steve had to redo all that. And yeah, the pair of us were trying to teach ourselves how to recarpet the van. So we were heading off to do the NC 500 for the first time, which was June 21. And we kind of rushed into buying this van, and there's been a few mechanical issues with it. But do you know what? I love it. It's just given us so much freedom. I think I did 5 trips to Scotland last year. We spent a lot of time on the Isle of Skye.
Only 5? It seems like a lot more.
It does, doesn't it?
She's like 5 this year.
Yes.
I think I'm already on 3 for this year, and 2 of them were to see you.
Lucky me.
In fact, I'm up there again in 2 weeks.
2
weeks' time.
And then Loch Ness will be 5.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just given us so much freedom. And like we were on about before, when I said we were supposed to be heading to Cornwall, and we looked at the long-term forecast, and it was going to be like 50-mile-an-hour winds for the first 5 days of the trip. And yet Scotland was actually looking pretty good. There was a little bit of snow forecast, which was fine, we could cope with that, but there was very little wind, and it was just looking amazing. So the freedom that it gives you to just change your plans or just rock up and do things, and like, you know, popping up to see Emily, I can just kip in the van nearby and just meet up and go and
so you don't have to worry about accommodation, when you can just, you've got your accommodation with you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's some days I'm one of these that likes to plan kind of every inch of every trip. We never stick to that plan, but I like to go prepared. So we'll drive for 3 or 4 hours, but then Steve's really, really inquisitive. So he'd be like, what's down this road? And we'll just head down, and sometimes there's nothing, or sometimes you just come out to this like amazing spot and you're like, we're just going to camp here for the night. You can adapt your plans so much quicker, and nothing's a problem. Or even if you just go out for the day and you think, do you know what? I really fancy a coffee, and you just sit and get the kettle on and just chill out in the van. I mean, there's a local spot that we quite often head up to just with the dogs. It's probably only a 20-minute walk up to a trig point, and it's just one of those evening walks that we can do, and then maybe sit and watch the sun just going down, even in the van, or we can sit at the trig point, and it's just the freedom. It's just amazing. And it's great for getting changed and after you've been for a dip as well.
So you're going to convert us all to cold water dipping van lovers.
But even just with the paddle boarding, obviously we're all paddle boarders. You know, just being able to like rock up. I mean, I went to the lakes a couple of weekends. I did my first solo camp 2 weeks ago, I think. And I met up with another girl who also did her first solo camp. But just having the van to get changed in. We were there first thing in the morning, ready to get out onto the water. And we had a lovely paddle up and down Lake Windermere. And then we had the sauna booked at the side of the lake in a converted horse box. It's amazing. So yeah, it was just really cool. We just paddled up to the little beach where the sauna was, did our sauna and a dip, and then got back on the paddle boards and carried on. Awesome.
Bliss. It's absolute bliss. So we will be expecting that. We are going to expect it, aren't we, Emily? We're going to hold you to that now. If we give Emily a task, she does normally bring more people in, and I think you've taken in quite a lot of people to the team as a whole. Probably second only to myself, because I bring in everyone. Ultimately, it's me bringing in everyone. It's my fault. It's my fault you're all doing it.
I do feel like Emily's biding her time, because she's kind of like mentioned it a little bit, like, and then I feel like she's gonna start prodding me now.
Oh yeah, I just like, it's like fishing. You just leave it in there for a little bit, mention it every now and again. This is actually not a podcast, Hannah. This is just an intervention to get you signed up.
Oh, well, that's been
the problem is, when I see all your like running 3 marathons in a month, it's just like, I think, how can I keep up with that?
I don't think anyone can keep up with that, Hannah.
It's not sustainable.
It's not conducive to a good life balance. And I think
my eyes are down here.
we're not talking about that, because if we will say anyone to watch your social channels for why we're not talking about that. So it will be on airwaves elsewhere, and definitely tune in for that. But it was insanity, and you did have your highs and lows. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. But I think that's taken us about an hour and 15 minutes ish. I think that's been good. Talk. That's been a good part. And I'm seeing how dark it's getting with Hannah as well. So it's light here for me, myself and Emily. It's nice and light, but south of the border, they turn the lights off very quickly.
It's just because the sun's coming around the side of the house.
On the other side. Okay.
Yeah.
I think all I can say is thank you very much for both coming on. I think it's fantastic. For me, it's been great to go through everything, and it seems to have flowed quite well. Certainly more stories to tell, so we'll definitely have you back on when Steve's around as well, and we'll maybe get third Steve involved as well. But because by the sounds of it, you're the regimented strictness and he's the chaos, and we like Steve's are a thing for chaos, so we'll get him involved.
He would definitely fit in with the chaos, definitely.
Super Steve, that's what we call him, Super Steve.
He has definitely kind of taught me to take myself less seriously, shall we say. He's been a good influence.
I mean, that's for what I've learned from both of you, that's really what life's all about, is go and do things. To jump at the idea of doing things and don't put them off. And don't take yourself too seriously when you're doing it as well, from your dances that we've all seen you do. And how much Steve's taken the Michael out of you as well for doing them.
Hey, I learned some of my moves off him.
I know. But you're right, Steve. I think that's it. It's just like all the things we've done and signed up for, and then like we say how we met as well. Like, it's unreal to think how good of friends we are, but yet this time last year we didn't know each other, and we've never met.
It's been 4 months, and it just feels like we've been friends forever. Like, from the minute we met at the side of Ullswater, it was just like
instant.
Yeah, it was like we'd met before. It was just such an amazing feeling, just chatting away. And we definitely stayed in the water far too long that day, because we were just chatting away, and we got out and we're like,
prunes.
That was really good. We're a bit cold now.
But I think like social media gets such a bad rap at some time, and obviously it does have its moments, but like, when you talk about like the community that you make and stuff, I mean, that's where like the wild swimming, great, the running community, amazing as well, because everybody just wants to kind of lift you up and support you. There's no sort of, oh, my time's better than yours, or I can stay in the water longer than you, or it's just like, wow, that's
and those
amazing,
people exist, but we don't involve ourselves with them.
No, exactly. Yes, they know not to bother. It's lovely when you get to like meet other people that are kind of like you, and they just want to like kind of live their best lives.
That's it.
You know,
That's it. Definitely. And I
think you do kind of hit that age where you just think like you don't care anymore what people think. And yes, if anyone has seen our socials, the little dip and dry dance at the end of our cold water dipping has definitely taken off.
Now, I'm not going to say I'll be doing that. Probably will, but I'm not going to commit to that. I'll commit to the cold water dipping, but maybe not the dancing just now.
I've seen your karaoke on the run video. You will definitely be taking part in that.
It's like a different level, for goodness sake.
I haven't. I literally I've run dry now on ideas for that. So I need to go silent on Instagram for a little while and then come back with a mega blowout song.
I kept trying to think of songs, and I was like, every time I tried it, I thought, I don't know all the lyrics. And you kind of sing stuff in your head and you think you know it, but then when you have to do it, you're like, actually, I don't. I realized I knew lyrics to Disney songs, so that's what I went with.
My biggest problem, and I think this is why I've only redone the 2, and then there was a song that Lee put on the group playlist, and it just worked for me at the end of the pier. I could think of songs, but I want to get props, and then I'm like, I could do that song, but I'll need to buy that prop, and it grows arms and legs. And it's the same with the podcast. I can get carried away very, very easily, but I'm trying to stay level with the team, with the Loch Ness team. I'm trying to stay level, because some of those chats, I wait till someone tags me in it, because it is pure chaos. An organized chaos, but chaos all the same.
Although I think recently we've had a few new members join, and I do think everybody's on their best behaviour for a little bit. Steve, what do you think?
I would say Rachel's on her best behaviour.
Rachel's on her best behaviour.
Rachel's definitely on her best behaviour.
There's been less crazy chat. I think we're all there's more people.
If I agree to sign up, only if you don't be on your best behaviour.
It's all right.
I think that. Well, yeah, that's with having 21 members at the moment or something. Emily, I'm sure that will quickly break down into.
We're getting by everybody's like cool off period for purchasing the race, and then just get in there with the chat. So
again, I can't even announce some of the people that have joined us, because it's not for me to say who's joining us. It's for them to announce it, and they haven't announced it yet. So we have. I think we've announced up to like 15 people in the last video I did, but I don't want to do another one yet until they've announced it.
Like you say, Steve, like another group that I now count as friends. Like me, Kaylee, and Rachel ran around Manchester together, half of it. And you think, I didn't know these girls like a couple of months ago, but now
exactly. Yeah, it's just like it's been forever. And I've got that thing. I have met a couple of the group. I briefly met Elodie, and I might have to run with her at Edinburgh because of my knee issue. So maybe she does say she's a lot slower, but I mean, if I have to run slow because of what looks like now an IT band issue, then I have to run slow. I mean, it's the end of it. But it's nice to be able to give her the company as well, because I know that she had a difficult time of it last year, and not having anyone there to support her. Whereas this time we have a fair number of people going to be there.
I look forward to being in a cheer squad, not running.
for a change, not running. But I think in the fear of us continually going on for quite a while, I'll draw a line under it just now, and we will definitely have you both back on, whether it's together again or separate. We'll learn a little bit more from, as I say, another project that Emily's got on the cards. But no, I'm really looking forward to meeting you for the first time, Emily. I've had the privilege of knowing Hannah for a long time. So
is that a privilege?
I would say so. Maybe it doesn't work that's the opposite way for you to me, but I mean, I would say it's a privilege knowing you.
No, absolutely.
But no, it's been fantastic. And yeah, Steve's missed out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, we'll have a
great for having us.
I know, thank you very much. This was grand. Thank you.
I don't know about anybody else, but I absolutely loved that chat with Emily and Hannah. We actually stayed on the call for about another 45 minutes after I'd finished the recording, just having a laugh and sharing some stories. So definitely plenty more to come for our future episodes. So fingers crossed we can get them back for season 2. Certainly in and around or just after the Loch Ness 24, so we can see what Emily's impressions of me actually are. And hopefully we can get Hannah to join us as well. I'm actually really not sure how either the What the Fartlick boys or Ryan over on the Press Play and Run podcast managed to keep their guest interviews into such neat and well organised packages. It's definitely an art form in its own. A lot of discipline and control, that's definitely for sure. I could easily have gone on for 3+ hours this week's episode, but that's really not conducive to a good episode for you guys. So I cut it down as much as I could. But like I said in the intro, I'm flying solo for the outro portion of the podcast, as my wingman, runnerman Steve, is taking a well-deserved week away by the coast with his family, recovering from the London Marathon and everything that goes into preparation for a marathon as well. Now that I'm also on my own, I want to reiterate how awesome Steve did at the London Marathon. I wasn't lying when I say that the Who Dropped the Dibber team were in awe of the consistency that he was setting while we were tracking him on the app. It was phenomenal. And from all the photos I've seen, he looked like he had a great time of it. It's a bit of a polar opposite from the photos just 6 months ago, where he got to the 17 mile, 70 kilometer mark. And you could see it. He was disappointed. He really was disappointed last year. But what a difference 6 months make. The amount of training and consistency that he put into getting ready for his second London Marathon. It is inspirational, and he is such an inspirational member of the community. He always has time for anyone. And it's not just me as his co-host, it's for anyone. If you get in his DMs, you want a chat, he's always there for a chat. He'll either send you a voice note, he'll leave you a comment on your post, he'll send you a DM. So yeah, I want to just applaud Steve, and if he's listening to this, I hope it puts a smile on his face, because honestly, I would love to be able to be like Steve in that respect. He just smashed out his strength and conditioning, he smashed out his runs, and yeah, fingers crossed I am like that for Amsterdam. But kudos to you, man. You did amazingly. I'm only going to do one community shout out this week, just because I'm flying solo, but I want to tie it into the announcement for the guest for our next episode. But before I do that, I want to revisit something that we mentioned in the last episode, and it was the recommendation from Mike, the Pole Fit Runner. So Mike had the great idea to open our inboxes, and that could be our DMs or the email address, to topics or subjects relating to fitness and running for myself and Steve to give our 2 cents on. So that's what I'm here to do today. I would like to encourage anyone who has a topic or a subject that they want to hear my thoughts and Steve's thoughts on, please get in contact with us. Either drop it in our DMs on Instagram at Mr_Steve_runs or Runnerman Steve. And you can also find us at the podcast page, which is the Point 99 podcast. Alternatively, you can send us an email. We still haven't had a listener email. It's all just to do with the business side of things, the running of the podcasts. And you can get in contact with us there again at the point99podcast@gmail.com. Certainly, I'm looking forward to finding out what you guys want to hear us talk about. Now, it could be silly subjects, it can be serious subjects. I think by now you've probably gathered that myself and Steve, we don't shy away from things. We're quite outspoken on particular topics. And I think that's a good thing. Everyone has their own thoughts and beliefs on things, and we all respect each other's thoughts. A bit of fun doesn't go amiss as well, and we like to have a laugh. So yeah, throw them at us. We will put them in. If we get a few suggestions, we'll put them into a hat or something, and we'll pick out one each week and see how we go. But like I say, I'm only going to do one community shout out this week, and it is for the Scottish_runner, and that is Ryan, the host of the Press Play and Run podcast. And the reason I'm shouting out Ryan is for the fantastic audio note that I got from him after I announced that I was running Edinburgh in the last episode. If you haven't heard the audio note, I actually made a little clip on my own profile, so go and have a listen. It was so nice to get such a genuinely kind and happy response from him. I didn't really want to announce it last episode. I wanted to wait until we had Ryan on the podcast, and we do have him on for episode 9. That's going to be ahead of the Edinburgh Marathon, which is Ryan's first marathon, and it's going to be my second time at Edinburgh. Now, unfortunately, I have picked up a niggle in my knee, so I will not be anywhere near Ryan because he is absolutely flying just now. His training is going so well, and I can't wait to be there as he smashes what I can see is easily being a 3:30 or sub 3:30. But not to put any pressure on Ryan, he knows himself. It's about going and just enjoying his first marathon and giving the marathon the respect that it's due. But yeah, my knee issue, through a lot of talking to different members of the community, folks on Strava, folks on Instagram, I haven't gone to the doctor because our local practice is shockingly bad. Like a lot of people forgetting in to see the doctor without having to wait a long time. But we kind of diagnosed that it's the change of shoe. Now, I've mentioned before that I've changed to Hoka Rincon 3, which is a 3mm heel drop. From the Brooks shoes, the Ricochet or the Levitate, which are around about an 8mm heel drop, so the 5mm difference, change of gait. That combined with a lot of hill running recently, not doing stretching or strength and conditioning as much as I should, has kind of resulted in an IT band issue, an ITB, where I was out for a 30-kilometer run a couple of Sundays ago, and it was 30 kilometers. I got to 25 kilometers and I'd had some pain along the way, and I got to the point where it was excruciating. So I stopped. I walked for a bit, and then I got a recovery from my wife, and I didn't know what it was. So I kept my head down. I rested for the week and talked to a few knowledgeable people on different subjects. And yeah, it looks like I've done my IT band. I went out for a run yesterday, so that was Tuesday when I'm recording this outro. On the Wednesday, taped my leg, taped it for the IT band, and had no issue at all, which is spot on. So it looks like it's definitely that, but with so few weeks left before Edinburgh, I'm really just going to have to take it easy so I don't cause any lasting damage for going ahead into Amsterdam and beyond. So really just taking it easy, resting, stretching, doing all the stuff that I should have been doing anyway. And that goes to show that stretching is important. I have a lot of time on my feet. It's just a consequence of changing my shoes to a different brand and the heel drop. So there's a whole load of things you can think about. You never know it all, and you learn as you go. It's just how you develop from the lessons that you've learned. Shouting out Ryan for the phenomenal response that I got. He's such a nice guy on his own podcast, on the socials, and I can't really wait to meet him. I think it's going to be fantastic to get some face-to-face time with him and just chill out either before or after the marathon. So that will be our next episode 9, and that will come out on the 19th of May, with the marathon being the week after. So I'm not really gonna impinge on his last taper week, his really chill week. I want him to kind of get in the right headspace without having too much worry to think about. I'll do it the week before, given that the knowledge of a previous Edinburgh Marathon runner, of the course and what to expect. Now, I do know a few other members of the community who are running Edinburgh. I can't wait to kind of catch up with them. I've met some of them before, and the fantastic Elodie and Giz from the Loch Ness 24 team are also going to be running. So at the moment, like I say, I'm taking it easy. They are usually of a slower pace than myself. They're of their own pace, and it looks like I'll join them just to really have a good laugh and help Elodie push for her goal. But otherwise, I think that's about it. I don't have Steve to bounce off of, so It's going to be a very, very brief outro. And all I want to say is I hope your runs are going fantastic no matter what you've got on the go, whether you have an event, whether you have an ultra, whether you have a 5K, 10K, park run, whatever it is. I hope you're smashing out what you're looking to smash. And if you're not, I hope that you're still staying positive and working towards your goals. And a final note is to say a massive good luck to Kaylee, the happy diet, as she takes on the Ultra X 50, which is from Fort Augustus to Doors, to almost where she's going to be camping with myself for the Loch Ness 24. Her training has looked so solid. She's going to smash that out. And hopefully, when I get the tracking information over, I'll be able to go and support her along the route, since I'm local to the event anyway. Maybe event I'll run in future years, but as long as I can be there, even at the finish line, just to show her some support and help her celebrate what's going to be a massive achievement. So until next time, guys, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all positive, and we'll speak to you soon.